Hello and welcome back to Gowerton Parkway. You join me today for a detailed look at the nuclear flask depot, motorway bridge and the quarter of the layout that leads from the bottom of the station down to the main curve at the bottom of the layout. I thought it was important that I gave you this tour and a proper detailed look at how I've done what I've done, just to hopefully answer any questions that you would have previously missed had I have actually produced videos as I went along building this layout, and hopefully this will give you some ideas when building your layout. So the first area in which we will start is the head shunt for the nuclear flask depot. So locomotives will run into the depot, drop off their wagons, run into this head shunt and then can run round them. Normally the flask would be stabled underneath the crane and you would have the locomotives run around the road that the flasks are in. So the head shunt itself, you will notice, has a barrier in front of it. This is a knock crash barrier. These come in grey. I've just sprayed them up yellow to make them stand out a bit more. This has all been ballasted using my standard method. My standard method is to use Gauge Master N-Gauge ballast, and it's all airbrush weathered with track dirt and some other tones of colour to sort of give the impression of diesels that have been standing. Across the back here, this is all palisade fencing. It's a fairly recent kit, I believe, from the Wheels Ratio range, so this has been added fairly recently to this part of the layout. Previously there was nothing there and it did look a bit stupid, so I've got that in there now and that tidies that up. My trees here, I've produced these. These are seafoam trees and they have been decorated with knock leaves. There's quite a simple process to making these trees and I think it gives an outstanding result. You literally just take the seafoam tree, spray it with hairspray and sprinkle the leaves over it. It gives you a nice branchy effect with leaves and I feel it looks good. Static grass has been used to create a overgrown feature at the end of this siding. And static grass has been used on the right hand side of your picture to create a hill / mound area. And you might not be able to see from this angle very well that this is a hill area. I've actually raised this part of this was originally flat, but I decided to create a hill to add a bit of relief to this scene. So if I zoom down a bit, it might give you a bit of a better sort of idea of how that looks. There we go. Now the road that you see in front of you has been made from polyfiller, so I just literally got a load of polyfiller, whopped it down, sanded it as best as I could, left a few divots and dinks in it to try and make it look a bit rough and unlooked after, and then just painted it over with some just some tester pots from Wilkinson's, so it was various blacks, whites and greys to mix up and give it different colours. So behind the sidings for the nuclear flask depot and the road, we've got my standard retaining wall sections. These have been built in the same way as I built ones for the station. It's foam board covered in some overlays that I produced in Photoshop and InDesign. On the back of that I have a scratch built Royal Mail depot, just a nice backscene filler there. And then the backscene stretches round into the motorway bridge. So this is plaster cloth has been used to build this scenic wall hill section, various different trees etc. added to that, and the motorway bridge has been sunken into that, but we'll take a little look at that in a bit more detail after we've looked at the nuclear flask depot. So the nuclear flask depot itself has a concrete hard standing. The hard standing has been made using polyfiller again, and this runs up to the edge of the rail which the locomotives will draw the nuclear flask wagons into. There is a light, a yard light that sits in the nuclear flask depot. This is an Econ Burco light, fairly reasonable, little LED lights. They're okay, quite fragile, not necessarily the best ever yard light that you can buy, but it does the job for what I need to here. Now on the right hand side at the end of this concrete pad there should be a building. I haven't got one yet, I haven't built one yet. I was going to have a porter cabin, but I was decided against that, so I'm going to have to try and figure out something else. So on the right hand side, behind where you can see the guy, the bins and the gas canisters, there will be a building of some kind. I've just got to figure out what to do there. Maybe some sort of prefab building that's just been dumped there and built quickly and on the cheap. The crane itself is a ratio kit. This kit is an absolute pain in the butt. There's so many different little parts to it. I have basically just sprayed it up, primed it in grey. It doesn't pick up very well on this video, to be honest, and it's been weathered just to try and give you a bit more of an impression of some of the detail and texture on there. Like I said, it doesn't really show up very well on this video. If you get the chance to have a look at the Hornby magazine feature that I had on the layout, have a look at a picture of it, and there you'll see it picks out a lot of the detail quite nicely. Now you may be wondering, looking at the layout, why have you got a nuclear flask depot in there? There's no nuclear power stations in South Wales, so there wouldn't be a nuclear flask depot there. Yep, I'm aware of that, but it's just something that I was interested in. The nuclear flask trains always fascinated me. Growing up in Essex, they used to run from Southminster through my local station and out up to Sellafield. Now, these trains were the only sort of freight trains that used to appear on the line by where I lived, so they're obviously something that interested me. I remember as a kid I bought some kits. I think they were Genesis kits of nuclear flask wagons. So I've always been running them ever since I've been quite small. So yeah, it's just something that interested me. Now, the traction that I would normally have pulling nuclear flasks and operating around this depot would be DRS traction. I've got a pair of DRS class 37s which can typically be seen used here, and a pair of DRS class 20/3s that were converted models. Now at the moment they are out of service. I'm doing a bit of work to them. They are ones that have got the Compass branding on, and obviously the layout is pre-Compass branding, so I'm trying to retrospectively fit the old transfers on it, so I'm just spending a bit of time doing that. Hopefully one day in the future Bachmann will finally release their version of it and I can lay those to rest. On the right hand side you can see a ballast mound. Now this ballast mound was created at the start of the process of building the layout. It was one of the first scenic things I put in. Originally the freight loop which runs in front of the steel train that you can see there was actually a dead end siding. It was going to be a ballast siding and ballast loading point, but that's long since changed and become a freight loop that runs out from the yard. Now this is basically just stayed there. I think it looks quite good. I don't need any real justification for it. I think it's a decent little feature. You often find large ballast mounds, and the way I would justify it is that this ballast has been shipped in for reballasting yards, etc, etc, etc. Now the ballast mound has been made again just using a little bit of plaster cloth, and then it's been covered in ballast. The ballast that it's been covered in is 00 gauge ballast, it's not the N gauge ballast, and it's all been weathered down a touch with the airbrush too. Now the next thing we're going to look at is the motorway bridge. The motorway bridge cuts in to the scenery, the hillside scenery over the back there. It's supposed to represent the M4 running over the railway. You'll notice on there this bridge is not, it needs tidying up basically. Quite a few of the railings from the central reservation are gone. You got stupid stuff going on like this, like back to front cars and whatnot. So yeah, all needs sorting out, to be honest. It needs a good tidy up. It's quite dusty. Yeah, look at that, disgusting. Maybe it's time for another outing for the magic dusting brush from the last video. Stay tuned for exciting developments on the dusting brush. Yeah, so with this one, central reservation has been made again using static grass. This is all MDF wood, so this is spare MDF offcuts I had for something or another. The lanes are produced exactly to scale size, so I've got a hard shoulder, lane, central reservation, lane, and a hard shoulder. Now there's a lot of potential for this particular scene. I can always do some sort of exciting thing, like a broken down car, something on fire, cars with flashing lights, etc, etc. It needs sorting out. I need to have a think about how to get the most out of this area and really sort of make it a decent focal point for the layout, because at the moment it looks a bit crud. supports for the bridge. Now I couldn't figure out how the hell to do this and how the hell to get anything that was strong enough to hold up this whacking great lump of MDF. In the end I bought a broom handle. I cut it up to make some concrete poles. These were all sprayed using Humbrol aerosols and they just about do the job. Looks okay to me. I just sort of try and go give it a low view. You can see how the bridge cuts in. Now the fancy type bit on the side was this sort of skirting stuff that you can get in B&Q that's used for, I don't know what it's used for, but it's used for something. It's probably not primary use is to be making bridges for model railways, but there you go, put it away, you can see what it is or was. I just thought it was a quick, neat, easy, effective way to put that fence down the side of the layout, and it finishes off the side of the bridge quite nicely. Over the back there again you'll see there's a motorway gantry with motorway signage on. I produced the signage myself. I've put a 50-mile-an-hour limit on the gantry. Again, like I say, this area of the layout hasn't been very well looked after, to be perfectly honest. So I just thought I'd give you one more view down the motorway. Again, you can see how much work needs doing into it. These need replacing. Well, they don't need replacing, they need finishing off down to the other end of the layout. As I mentioned previously, I nicked some off of here to use on Talbot Lane, which isn't ideal, but I needed them quickly. This gantry, to be honest with you, it could do with being completely rebuilt. I'm not a massive fan of it. It would help if it was in the right place, because at the moment there's a 50-mile-an-hour limit in the central reservation. Useful. Look, see, look, this rubbish bit top heavy. But yeah, I've got some ideas in mind for what to do for this. I did think of doing a little prang in there, a little bit of a crash with some flashing lights and things. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do like an air ambulance and put that on there. But I thought that's probably a bit sick, isn't it? Can't be doing stuff like that. So I will just tidy this up, get the traffic looking neat, maybe put some street lights on there, and maybe if I can be bothered, actually wire lights into the headlights of some of these vehicles for night time. The last part to show you for this video is the curve that goes round to underneath the bridge and the entry to the nuclear flask siding. These points here, they're where the trains run into the nuclear flask siding. You've got your freight loop there, and then the two main running lines there. I've got another one of these train tech signals in there. Again, as I mentioned before, they are purely cosmetic. I don't really use them or change the light colours on them. They're just there to look good. I've got no idea about signalling, so they're probably in the wrong place. Backscene for this, I've literally just put a piece of wood along the back and painted it blue, and that's just to finish off the edge of the layout, so look into the rest of the loft there. And then this is where it goes off into the fiddle yard, but we shall pick up on the next detail video this area of the layout right from here. So that concludes the video on this part of the layout. I hope you found it useful. If you have any comments or ideas or suggestions or things that you think I could do to improve this, just let me know, add a comment below, and I'll be grateful for any feedback. If you have any questions on how I've done anything, or if I've missed anything on the video again, just let me know and I'll try and cover that off for you. And likewise, if you have any ideas of what you'd like to see, any future content, any future videos, anything that you want me to go over, just let me know and I'll try and get a video out on it. Thanks again for all your likes, your subscriptions and your comments. It is much appreciated. Keep sharing the channel and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers, bye bye.